What's up everybody, David here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to get a metal bass tone using the Toneforge Ben Bruce amp sim. Ben Bruce Toneforge is an amp simulator made by Joey Sturgis Tones, and using a guitar amp for a distorted track of a bass guitar is actually really common nowadays. I've done it multiple times. On my last video I did it with the Misha Mansour amp and I got great results. And for my band's newest song, Silent Warfare, I decided to try the Toneforge Ben Bruce model, and I got some really cool results. So today I'm going to take you guys through that tone and show you what I did. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into the DAW and get started. Alright, so the song we're going to be using as our example today is my band Guilty by Design's brand new song, our newest song, Silent Warfare. So if you like that song, I will leave a link down in the description below. But yeah, let's get started. So this is the DI track of the bass with absolutely no processing. Now about the bass, I recorded it using my Squier 70s jazz bass tuned to drop C, and I have Ernie Ball's Slinky Cobalts on it. I believe they're 50 to 105. This song is the first time I've ever used the Cobalts, and I will never go back. The low end is absolutely massive on it. It's got a super clear high end, and it doesn't have that muddiness at 130, 150 that I really hate on bass guitars. So Cobalts are awesome. Definitely give them a shot. So we are using the 2-track split setup. I do use this from time to time to get some good distortion on the bass, and we just have a clean track through a regular bass head, and then a grit track, of course, using the Toneforge Ben Bruce amp sim. Then both tracks are being routed into a bus where we do some additional processing. So let's start with the clean track first. This is my go-to bass head. It is actually free. It is the Ignite Amps SHB. I have about 60% gain on there, left the bass alone, 75% mids, a little more treble, and this is what we get out of that. So it sounds pretty good. Now we're going to run it into a cabinet impulse, and this is one of the impulses from the Conquer All impulse pack from JST. And after that, I have a de-esser, which you might be wondering why I put a de-esser on a bass, and that is to control the pick attack on the bass. So I really don't like the pick attack a lot of the time. It kind of sticks out and I don't really care for it. So I put a de-esser on it just to kind of tame that. So we're going to go to a chorus where I'm just picking eighth notes the entire time, and you're going to hear a really nice difference, and it's going to really flatten out the picking and the top end of the bass. Now, I went pretty aggressive on this. Obviously, you don't have to go that far, but a de-esser is actually really nice for controlling pick attack on a bass guitar. So definitely give it a shot. And that is it for the clean bass tone. So just those 3 plugins on there. Now let's move on to the grit track, of course, using the Toneforge Ben Bruce. We're going to solo this. And let's see what we did here. So I do have the Tube Screamer engaged. I think I left the settings alone. The drive is about 50%, gain is about 75, tone I left alone. The tone is going to be really good to decide what range the grit is. So if you want a more mid-range grit or like a high clanky grit, you're going to use that tone knob to decide that. I just left mine alone. It sounded cool. For the amp settings, we're running about 45% gain, about 55% in bass, same about for the mids, a lot of treble, a lot of presence, and we're using the 57 on the cab with no limiting or compression. So let's bring that into that tone and see how it goes. So it's really nothing special, it's just a distorted bass track, but it doesn't sound too bad on its own. So now we have it going into the Pro EQ in Studio One. I'm just pulling out some low end, pulling out some of the harshness around 3K, and then a little bit of mids at about 600. So I'm really just trying to smooth out and focus that bass tone. So now let's combine both the grit and the clean tone together. So I think that sounds pretty good. The grit isn't taking over the tone, it's just adding a little extra, a little extra aggression into the bass tone. So then we have both of them going into a bus, and first thing we have on there is the virtual mix rack. So there's a few things in the rack here. First thing we have is the SSL EQ, adding some 7K, some 3.4, and taking out some 700 Hertz. Now, we did pull out the 3K in the Pro EQ after the Ben Bruce amp to pull out some of the harshness, but now we're adding it into the entire tone with both the clean and the distorted. So we're bringing some of that clinky bass goodness, I guess we'll call it, back into the mix, but we're not bringing the harshness with it, which was the whole point of that subtractive EQ. So let's see what the EQ is doing. So once again, it's just really focusing that bass tone. It makes it much more exciting. And then we have it going into the FG Stress, which I mentioned this before. I'm just using the bass guitar aggressive preset. Throw this on any bass guitar, dial in the input, and I guarantee you are good to go. This preset is fantastic. It's on pretty much all of my bass tracks, and I always use this to sum the two tracks together. So if I ever do a split where it's a clean tone and a grit tone, it's always going into the FG Stress just to bring them and glue them together. Now, of course, we're hearing a volume difference, but to me, that does not sound like two tracks blended together. It kind of did before, but after that compression, it sounds like one meaty and ballsy bass track, and that's what I was looking for. So next we have the Air EQ Earth, just to add pretty much all of the low end. So there's already quite a bit of low end in the bass track already, but the Air EQ is adding that really, really low sub low end to give us a little more to work with later on. Next we have the Pro EQ, and on this one, I'm pulling out some of the low end. So like I said, I added it in with the Air EQ just to give us more to work with and more to shape the low end later with the actual parametric equalizer. So we're pulling out 300 Hertz here. We're pulling out a couple whistly frequencies around 1 and 2K. Let's check it out. Now, it didn't sound bad with these frequencies before I used the EQ, but for this song, I really wanted a very focused type of bass tone, and that was taking away from that focus. That's why I made those cuts, but honestly, it sounded pretty good with them in there as well. Next, we have the Waves C4, which is just controlling some of the low end a little bit, and then pulling out the low end at 130, 140 Hertz that I absolutely despise in bass guitars. So this is really just kind of the last step for me for bass guitars, just to even out the tone. And then lastly, we have a Pro EQ on here that's not really doing anything. This is for another video I did where I actually automated the low end of the bass guitar to drop out when the bass drop hits. So if you want to know more about that, I will put a link in the description below. But this Pro EQ is not doing anything or adding anything to the actual tone. So to me, this is a really smooth, but at the same time, aggressive bass tone that sits really nice in the mix. So what we're gonna do is we're going to mute the bass guitar, we're gonna play the mix, and then we're gonna bring it in to see how it fills that space. Now, what I like about this tone a lot is that it's really meant to just kind of blend in and provide a bunch of low end for the guitars, but also when the bass goes on to do its own thing, when it does something different from the guitars, you notice it. It's subtle, but it's also very pleasing to the ear. So for example, I'm gonna play you a part where the bass kind of does its own thing, and I'm gonna play it with the vocals too. It cuts through even with the vocals present, and I think it sounds really cool. Very true, hide the key, this blindness is all. So right there, the bass guitar went a little bit higher than the regular guitars, and it didn't stick out like a sore thumb, but you noticed it, and it was subtle, and it was pleasing to the ear. And yeah, I'm really stoked on this bass tone. This is probably one of the best bass tones I've ever gotten, so that's why I thought it'd be cool to show you guys how to do it. And that's it. That's how to create an awesome bass tone using the Toneforge Ben Bruce as a really, really good distortion. Now, if you've watched my bass videos before, a lot of that's gonna be very similar processing to what I usually do. I think this time around I added a little bit more on the virtual mix rack on the whole bus, but overall, like, that's pretty standard processing for me. But I just really liked how smooth Ben Bruce is for distortion on a bass track. I think it helped out a lot with the Pro EQ after the distortion, but overall I was looking for a smooth, gritty, really mid-rangey bass track, and I got that no problem using the Ben Bruce amp sim. So I would definitely recommend that you guys try it out. It's also really good for guitars, because, well, it was meant for guitars. So I would hope it's good. It is. And of course, one more shameless plug. If you like that song, that is my band Guilty by Design's newest song, Silent Warfare. So if you like it, if you want to listen to it, I will put a link down in the description below. Go ahead and check it out. I would appreciate it a lot. On that note, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Come say what's up. Come hang out. I try to reply to every one of my comments. So yeah, hopefully I see you there. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There are new videos every single week, and you don't want to miss any content. Also, make sure to ring the bell so you get notified when I post videos. On that note, guys, thank you so much for watching. I know that I don't say this enough, but it really means a lot to me that you guys enjoy my videos, that you enjoy my content, that you comment and we talk in the comments. And I just really, really love interacting with you guys. So once again, thank you so much. My name is David, and I will see you in the next video.